or whether or not it makes them say, all right, well, as my mentor used to say, nobody at the IRS blocked their career path by saying no to a taxpayer, and whether or not they just choose not to make decisions and move it to the next level. And I don't have a sense of that yet, but I'm going to be watching that. I don't think it necessarily. I mean, the IRS is much more active in the captive area these days. I don't necessarily think that the issues that they've had in the tax exempt translate to that, but we'll see whether or not it sort of changes the mood within the agency.
Right.
And I was shocked when they said Lois Lerner was going to take the fifth. That to me implied to me that there was something more there than what I assumed was there.
Did nothing wrong, but I'll take the fifth.
Yeah. So, is that responsive, Lawrence? Okay. You're welcome. Anybody else have any questions on that? I mean, it's a little too early to tell how that'll play out, but Gary and I actually do take some of this seriously. And the title of the whole conference is 8th Annual Executive Educational Conference, Effective Choices for Changing Times. And so we've titled ours Captive Taxation, Are the Times A-Changing? For those of you that are as old as me, you remember Bob Dylan and the times they are a-changing, and so that's where we got that. And I don't know, I mean, there hasn't been that much. We're going to talk about a couple of things that have been issued in the last 12 months, but there haven't really been that many changes other than increased litigation and increased audit activity. We're going to talk about that in a little bit too.
A lot more audit activity, primarily in the insurance area, completely.
Yeah. So here's what we're going to talk about. And is this too loud? It sounds loud to me. No? Okay. We're going to talk about the tax test for captive insurance. We're going to talk about some sample IRS questions. We're going to talk about the captive litigation. There was a split session earlier about onshore, offshore, and Gary and I talked about FBAR, so we'll take questions on that. We didn't get to FATCA then. Gary will do that then. IRS business plan, employee benefits and sales, taxation, a couple of new issues, concentration of risk, homogeneity, pooling, one insured loan back, excise tax we talked about in the earlier session, 831B. We won't get to the end of this, so if anybody wants to focus on one of those topics, just ask us. We'll flip to that. So with that, and I will do a fair amount of talking, and the reason is that when we get a tough question, I have no clue the answer is, I can toss it to Gary, and people will say, well, he was just being nice to Gary and didn't want to talk anymore. Okay, so for those people who don't have a clue about tax, here's the three things I always think about. Have a good business purpose. Secondly, you want to be in the insurance business, assume and share risk. And thirdly, run it like an honest-to-goodness insurance company. And both from a tax standpoint and from the regulatory standpoint, if you got those three always in mind, you got a pretty good guide as to how things will go. We got a couple of regulators. You agree with that? Yeah. So here's what the tax test the courts have come up with. You have to have an insurance risk. You have to transfer that risk from the insurer to the insurance company. You have to distribute that risk.